Hello, let's look at restoring a picture that's more than 100 years old. Originally taken in a portrait studio, this photograph is now heavily degraded. It needs quite a lot of cleanup, but we want to do it in the most efficient way we can. Now, I'm not going to say this is possible within 5 minutes as I do in my other videos, but certainly we want to try and use the tools of Photoshop elements to make this as straightforward as possible, and that's what I will be showing in this video. We begin by trying to get the global features as good as possible. There's two reasons for this. One is so that after that the degradations, the aberrations will show up as clearly as they would do in the final version if we didn't remove them. The second is we do want to step back and think about the subject matter of the picture to see what we can get away with in different parts of the image. So to do this, we begin in Elements by going to the Enhance menu and looking at the levels, the number of shades of grey that are involved in this picture. Click on Levels. Here's the histogram of the picture. We can see that it doesn't go from 0 to 255, so we can change these end stops so that the contrast is enhanced. In fact, if we just look at the picture for a moment, we can see that maybe this little peak at the end here comes from this area of white that for some reason the scanner has included. And around the edge should be the next brightest area, so perhaps for the picture's sake we can bring this down and thereby brighten the image up quite a ways. Let's leave it there. Let's work on an image that reveals itself a little bit more by setting the levels like that. Now, we've got a typical portrait studio image. In fact, after 100 years, there's not much left of the face. The features are quite dainty in this, and there's not much sculpting. We can't get that back. We might be able to restore some of the clothing. It looks fairly conventional. The background is textured, but clearly is meant to be fairly out of focus. We've got the curtains over this side, some props on this side. The top hat, you notice, is matched with a cane in his hand just here. So we might be able to do different things in different areas. One last thing to point out is that the floor, although some of it is at the same distance as the man's face, it's all fairly blurry, so we can get away with quite a lot on the floor. Okay, so now we've done our global job and thought about what we might be able to do where. We begin by making a copy of the layer. As in my other videos, we do our noise reduction on a second layer just so that if we want to, we can get back to the detail in the original in the places where it's required. Go to the layer menu, duplicate layer, OK. And over here on the right you see now we've got two layers, one on top of each other. We're going to work on the top one. Begin with a filter. Filter, noise, many choices there, but dust and scratches usually does the trick. In this filter you can set a radius for it to work over. The bigger this is, the blurrier it gets. I always leave it at 1. You can also set a threshold on how much variation there has to be before the noise filter kicks in. For a more recent picture, one that's maybe only 30 years old, I'll leave this set up here somewhere because I like to have that low-level grain preserved. But on this picture, I'm going to set it right down at the bottom because this is going to help smooth out some of that very noisy background texture. So threshold to 0, apply. That's taken away some of the little noise spots, but not most of the garbage. So to get at all of this, we have to use local tools. The key ones are over here on the left-hand menu, the spot healing brush and the clone stamp tool. When you've got lots of noise like this clone stamp tool really is your best friend, and we'll use it most of the time. Let me show you why it's better to use this than the healing brush. You see over on this side there's lots of areas degradation. With the close stamp tool, what we can do is select an area that's similar to that where there's the problem, but is unblemished, because we're going to clone that into the problem area. I'm going to make my brush size a little bit bigger. Here is the brush, I'll just put it at the top there. Make it bigger by using the close square bracket key on the keyboard, and then hold down Alt and click to select a start point for the clone process, and then we can begin painting. You see as I paint that the circle is where I'm painting into, and the crosshairs is where the data is coming from. Now, when you use the clone stamp tool like this, you can often get away with keeping the offset over quite a distance. On the other hand, once it seems that that offset is no longer appropriate, like here for example, I'm copying from over in the border, all I do is just hold down Alt again, choose an appropriate nearby point, and then write over with that. So we can do this selection of an offset point and then writing over again and again. In fact, I tend to do that quite a lot so that you get the really appropriate shading of background for each little bit of filling in that you do. So we can work our way down the background of the picture doing this, writing over some of the noisy sections, and you notice there's lots of little bits of noise as well as the larger nasty clumps of noise, until we get down, well, here we get down to the floor area. And this method can be used not just on the background, as I've done it down this left hand side here, but also on foreground areas. You have to be a little bit more careful when using it on the foreground. I tend to make the brush a little bit smaller, so use the open square bracket button for that. And I sort of dab and paint a lot more. So here's a dark area with garbage in. I choose a dark area to clone from and copy that. This area is a bit lighter, so I choose a lighter area and dab that along for a little while. So you tend to be a little bit more like an artist dabbing at their palette, just choosing different areas to clone from again and again in different places. So gradually you fill in over these various bits of noise. Now, this process may take quite a while. You may introduce some problems, and in places it may be best to switch to the spot healing brush, because spot healing brush, it works well when there are just spots, even when they straddle a boundary like that. Oh, that one didn't work too well. When that happens, we just undo and try again with maybe a different size. There we go, that works. The spot healing brush is one of the amazing features of Elements in that it seems to work nearly all the time, and then sometimes it just does bizarre things and no one really knows why. But you just adjust it a little bit and again it's your friend. You can stroke over things like this with the spot healing brush, but see how it smears. This is why I normally prefer to go back to the old clone tool and copy somewhere nearby where there's a similar kind of structural feature to what you're overwriting. The clone stamp tool then is our key tool for getting rid of all the noise in the interior as well as in the background of a picture like this. We can work with it at multiple sizes, multiple levels of detail, and we can be as careful or indeed as cavalier as we wish about getting this right. Now, what I want to do is to get over as much of the correction as possible. There I copied an inappropriate section you saw, so again, Ctrl Z to undo and try again. You see I'm using the same offset again and again just to see if I can get away with it. If I can't, then I have to do the thing all over again. That works quite well. We're back in the background again now, and we might use a slightly bigger brush for this. We might as well just try to pick up not just the textured background here, but also these curtains. We do have to keep on choosing new places to clone from. Here's a part of the boundary that I've overpainted. Now you see I've gone over the edge there. I don't regard that as a problem because probably I'm going to crop the thing to the border in the end. But obviously that's fixable. You can fix it with the clones tool itself if you wish to, just by cloning part of the boundary into position. So you see how powerful this tool is. You can paint really with complete freedom, and so long as you're prepared to keep on copying from nearby places, it takes a while, but eventually you can get rid of most of the garbage. Sometimes when there's great detail you have to go in like this, so in tight with a smaller brush, like so. Again, a mistake, overlapping the grey area. I'm going to use the healing brush on those places over there, but not this here. This is another extended area of garbage. In fact, here's an example where I copy down, and then probably later on I'm going to be copying the copy. As long as you re-click, you can copy down. Now you do have to be aware that you don't get repeated patterns showing up. They can become very, very visible when you zoom out. So it's a thing to check for carefully at the end to see if you have introduced such things. How are we doing? So we've dealt with quite a lot of the noise, not as much as I would want to in a full final version, but we've certainly got rid of most of the very objectionable garbage. In the end, what we want to do is achieve something that is acceptable in the terms that we're aiming for. This perhaps isn't just yet, but it's getting there. And then we will go back to look at what could be improved about the detail. Let's look at this man's face. There are still one or two dots of noise to be dealt with, like here. I'm using the spot healing brush now, and here, there perhaps. There isn't a lot of detail in there, is there? Let's see what there was in the original by just removing the background copy for a moment. There we are. There's a little bit more, but a lot of noise getting in the way too. I want to get this eye back though. That's worth having. And let's try and get some of the other features without pulling back too much of the noise. So to do that, we're going to use the eraser tool and go in very carefully in these areas. There's the eye coming back. Let's get this eye back a little bit. This eyebrow perhaps. We could keep turning off and on that to see if there are other things that we'd like to get back. I have a feeling that that might be as much as we can do with the face, but perhaps we could sharpen up some of the other features. Perhaps this chain just here. Let's see. It looks like it could be sharper. Again, we're going to have to be careful not to introduce too much noise back, but it's like a highlight that, you know, gives us a little bit more interest in the image. How about the cane down here? You can hardly see the cane actually, but if we look at the original, well, there's a nasty piece of garbage here that's not going to be helpful. That's actually come through quite well, so I don't think I'm going to mess with the cane. Anything else lower down? Perhaps a little bit on the shoe there would be good to bring back. Yes, I want to see the layer I've just hidden. There we are. There may be things on the table as well, like these drawer handles that we could do a little bit better if we bring them back. Yes, that's nicer. Okay, So I think a little bit more work on this would be called for. I would also crop to the image itself, or if you prefer, you would do some work on the name of the photographer at the bottom. But this is where we end up with, at least on this first try at improving the old picture.